Welcome to the last one of these roughing out a crease. Now we can see where we're at. I've done a little bit extra, partly because I forgot my camera, but I haven't done an awful lot. So what I wanted to do on this one was concentrate on the main shape of this part of the crease. And maybe later we'll do some more and we'll show some other bits and pieces, but this is where this series is going to end. And all I've done is I've just stuck the rivets in the side there for the lames and married this up. So there's not been a whole lot that's gone on to the basic shaping and roughing of the crease, and simply I forgot to bring the camera in and I had to push on with work. So maybe we'll take another look at that at a later date, but we should get enough out of this to make this little video series worthwhile. So what I've done is I've got the basic shape in here. I know vaguely where my line's going to go, and again, you know, it's all horses for courses. I prefer to get my edges in and do all of that sort of stuff first and get everything built up, and then add my creasing and so on at the end. That's just the way I do it. It does have pluses and minuses. It means I get a more accurate crease line where I want it to go, and I can follow the shape of the leg and all that sort of stuff that I want it to go on to. But you know, I can do that quite accurately because everything's together and held in. I can see where it's all going to go, but it does have the disadvantage that when you get up here, you've already got your little rib we're going to put in a second, and it makes it tricky to get that to flow into that rib. But a couple of clouts with a blunt chisel on the back just dresses that off. So what I'm going to look at anyway is how I put in the little triangle rib, stop rib, whatever we want to call it, in this top edge. Sometimes I'll clean this back. So I just noticed there's a bit of a misshape on there. What I've spotted, if I can get that on the camera, is as it comes around here, it's not a nice sweep. There's like a little lump just there. So I'm going to take that off in a second. Just make that a bit more of a continual line. There's a little flat just there. So we'll get those tapped out and we'll get that put in, and then we'll take a look at the rib there. So all I'm going to do is I just want to bring that down a touch. I sort of jumped around a little bit on what I was planning on doing first off, but we'll get there. So it's just there, it's a bit flat. That's that taken care of. I'm going to go across to the I can't think what it's called, belt sander over there, and just tidy that line up a touch. So I'm back from doing that then, so I've tidied that line up a bit more satisfactorily there, and I've got rid of the little flat that was in there. It was sort of just there, was a bit flat between those marks. Now, putting in this edge, triangles are quite straightforward, as I hope this will demonstrate, and it won't be a mitigated disaster, which is always a chance, I guess. But what I like to do first of all, before I mark it up, before I do anything like that, is I want to break down this edge a bit. Now, with mild steel, this isn't 100% necessary, although it does still make the mild steel flow and move a bit easier under the hammer. Carbon steels, I would recommend doing this. To be fair, I'd probably recommend doing it all the time. And what I'm going to do is I want to break down this line about 3/4 of an inch, excuse me, or so in. And you do that just by hitting it. Keep it moving, so you're not putting the flat in. And the hammer I'm using, you can see I've shaped that way. Now, this trusty one, you can also do it by working this way. You can also take a normal hammer, make it easier on myself, and you can also, I've seen, I think it was in some video footage of Rob McPherson doing it this way, so it's good enough for Mr. McPherson is certainly good enough for the likes of me. And what he had was he had like a fluting hammer and was working it that way. It's probably a bit too sharp. And he was going that way. Now I just started doing it the way that I do it, and I like it, so I've stuck with it. But you know, if Mr. McPherson Rob's doing it that way, then there's probably a damn good reason for it, and he's a far superior armourer to me, so I would trust that. But this is the way I like doing it. You just make your way across the whole surface. So we're all done. Just a little point on the ends, when you get to these ends. What I've found, now I don't know if it's a definite thing for everyone, but what I've found is if I keep that flat there and I make my way along, what I do is I lift out the slight curve I've got in here, that way, and flatten it. So what I tend to do is just lift it up and exaggerate, that's too far, but exaggerate that and just do something along these lines. And that helps preserve that shape that I've got in. But you know, if you knock it straight, you can always push it back. Whatever you push in, you can always push back easily enough. So we've done that. What I'm going to do now is mark it up. Now, from experience, I know I want, it's going to be a small one, I want a line about there. But also from experience, I've discovered if there's any amount of time between doing this one and the other one, which there will be in this case, use a set of markers. Measure it up, make a note, and then you're always going to do the same later. Otherwise you'll end up with one with tiny little safety edge and one with a dirty great thing that looks like a roller coaster. And just make a mark. Don't need one of these tools, anything will do. You can do it on the edge of a ruler. Be careful, I'll show you that technique in a second. There we go. It's just a scratch so I can see it. I'm going to mark it in pen anyway. What you can also do, I can get this so it can be seen, is if you hold that, it's going to be tricky to do and mark it, but that's about 10 there. And you can run like that. Gives you a reasonably good line for this level of work if you just go slow and steady. But that was about, just in case you're interested so you can sort of see where you end up, about 12mm. Then all I do is, because I've got that nicely marked scratch, I just do this so I can see it in a bit. There we go, so that's just marked in. Like I say, sometimes if you put your creases in and bits and pieces on the front, you can clean that top edge back, at least to get rid of this scale. Ooh, there's a nasty mark there. At least to get rid of that scale, and then when you come to polishing it, it's a bit better for it. There's a little lump there. I'll just fetch that out. That's better. So, we've weakened this edge. What we want to do now is we want to kick that over to 90 degrees. So I tend to use a hammer with a bit of weight on it. And a nice curve. Get over the edge. Now this is a mild steel, so I can do this. Remember what I said before about coming up? Do that. I can do this with mild steel. I prefer a bit of heat in it, but it's easier to show. What I'm looking for is I've drawn my line, and as I'm bruising the material, as I'm hitting it, you can see the light changes on it. Okay, and what I'm looking to do is try and keep that nice edge I've got on my anvil running nicely inside there. The sharper you keep this, the sharper the edge will be. Or the cleaner, sorry. So just start, kick it over, and then find the edge. don't bring it down on there like that, so it's like a chisel. You're hitting, when the hammer hits, it's kind of hitting this edge first and cupping it over, and then I tidy it up by striking there. Always rolling the piece, otherwise you'll flatten it into there. And this stage will open it out, I find, only by about an inch across there or so. Don't worry about it, don't sweat it, because when you take it back past itself, it'll pull it back and you'll be surprised how close it can be to the original, as long as you don't overwork it. If you want an edge that's going to get thinner towards the ends, then you draw that in first. I'm just going for a uniformed line in this one. Because it can save you stress in the material, but it's not imperative on this bit. Give or take, depends on how the metal's feeling, I suppose. I'll just flatten that down, a bit small that one. Just flatten that edge down you put in. And that marking we did at the beginning will help this bit, particularly here. You can cheat it on the edges and not do it too much, but that striking we did right at the beginning really helps this bit stretch and move into where it wants to be. And sometimes you can actually stretch it before you get started so it pulls over, but not too much, otherwise it's a pain to get around. Where my anvil's got quite a wobble on it. It's not the anvil, it's the floor underneath. It used to be an old stable and it's on an angle, and my stump has got a dirty great lump in the middle of it, so I sometimes wedge it, but it's moved. It shouldn't be like that. It's a lot of wasted energy. Trying to make sure I'm preserving that curve in there. It's difficult to keep in here at this stage because what has happened is I've put that in, it's resisting it. When it flattens back down, you can, oh, hang on, I'm losing you on the camera. When that flattens back round, you can move it around. Now what can happen sometimes is this bit gets a bit larger here than you want, say in the middle here. So you take a look at your piece now, and if you need to, grind a little off the edge. I might do on this one. It's not too bad now, I've taken care of that edge. What you can do is you can file, I'll do it with this one so I don't have to change it. So if that's a bit big there, tidy it back. It's another way as well, if you want to get an edge that's disappearing as it goes there, you can grind it now, but it's easier to mark it and then do this bit to then. I'll make sure that isn't. Getting a bit larger. There's a bit of a flare up. We'll see what happens as we get going. Same there. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go to the belt sander. Yeah, I'm going to go to the belt sander over there and just tidy in those edges about a mil, just on the end there. Just want to bring that there to about there. So that's all done. I'm happy that I've got that back. Now, what we've got at the moment, so I'll find some chalk, is this edge here. Obviously started life, let's see if we can see that. Yeah, started life like that. And now vaguely we've done something like that to it. What I want to do is take it past the 90 to in and around that sort of shape, maybe even a bit more. You get a feel for it. It does take a bit of time, there's a bit of practice. When I first got shown how to use this technique, I was hopeless, absolutely hopeless. I could not get it and I dreaded coming to the angles. So what I ended up doing in the end was cutting myself some strips, about 3-4 inches long, bringing them over, practicing on curves and flats, and just spent the day learning how to do it. And you know, now I have reasonable success. It can get away from you, but you know, go check the originals. They got away from them a few times too. So the easiest way I find, bring that edge over, rest it against your hip, whatever, with the apron on or something, otherwise you can do yourself a mischief, and just start tamping it over. If you find it's not moving, get a bit of heat into it. Drop a bit of heat into it. If you have that option. If you don't have that option, then sometimes a more rounded hammer like this one means you're moving less material with more force. But if you really go at it, you can drop all those marks in there. But you know, just give it a try and see where you end up. Listen to the metal, see what it's doing. Check it's working and it's going over. Watch the ends because they have a tendency to bend in. You can always pull them back, but just watch that. You can do this with heat. This is 16 gauge 1.6 mil, whatever that turns into in imperial, I don't know. But you could just about do it like this, cold, with ease. I tend to prefer a bit of heat. I might put some in later to show you. 18 gauge just literally folds under your weight of your hammer. Keep it in a consistent one. Try not to get it suddenly dipping down. If it does that, fetch it out. Make sure these ends are brought over and that you're not just bending that bit in. Keep an eye on that. When you get closer to it, even it off and we'll get it over the anvil horn. So ready to put this now over the horn of the anvil. Now most anvil horns are made from mild steel, that's why they pick up the dinks and the dents. I think this is so they don't crack and fall off over time. You know, these do get marked. Don't sweat it, I used to get really bent out of shape over it. All I'm doing is I'm just tidying this edge up across its whole length. What I'm trying to avoid is having one bit smashed down. I'm coming down, not on the flat, but on this tip. Right, there we go, so that's in now. Now, just so generally this break is going to happen where it's going to happen. It normally goes quite a ways into it and then I'll fold it over. If you've got a, when you're trying to replicate time and time and time again, what can be useful is when you take it to the 90 that we did first of all, is you run a chisel along the back gently, breaking the material ready for it to go at a specific location you want it to go over. You can control it using this technique and get pretty good results, but it takes a lot of time. I found anyway, it took a lot of time for me to get familiar enough with it that it would happen where I wanted it to happen. And what I want to do, what I do is try and find an end that's convenient for you. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to lift the work up so that I can come down pretty much almost straight down on it. I'm just off of that almost. What I'm looking to do is break that flat bit of material. Work your ways in a good way. Don't need to go all the way around, but just remember where it was, and the next time when you start to bring it in, take it a bit further and a bit further and a bit further, and you'll always keep the line relatively even then. So I go a bit further this time, but ease it back to where it was the first time. Make sure there's no kinks appearing. Go back. See there, let's pack it down a bit, so I've got to take care of this, so that's going to be a problem. There we go. I think it was, I can't remember, one of the early videos, I want a shallow triangle on this. I don't want a big thing. There's going to be mail and all sorts going up and down on this. I want to keep it shallow and relatively tight to it. So you'd have to think about that depending on what sort of triangles you're after. I've used a smaller hammer so that I can control the amount of material moving at any one time. The temptation, or the problem, can be that the edge sometimes goes flat, but it's not that big a deal. This piece will be going into the groin, so I don't want a dirty great triangle that could catch the inside of the other thigh. And the same edge here, it's gone a bit too rounded there. I want that out a bit, so I'll probably fetch that out in a bit with a screwdriver, see if I can rescue it. If I can't, then I want that out a bit because I want a nice continual line with the next plate that's going to sit on there. Might, I don't know, we'll see how we go. Don't worry if you strike this, obviously you don't want to, but if you do strike this you can fetch out those mistakes later. And if you look at some original pieces, not all of them, because they normally grind them out or tap them out, but you can see the odd errant blow from the armourer where he's been in a rush and he's smacked the main plate. Keep going, and don't hit it flat like that because you'll just squash it straight down. Did have them on legs, but we want it up a bit. We want to put a bit of style into this. We'll get some style points. What I'm starting to do is think about where the bruise and the material is happening, where I want my crease line to go. So I've got to start thinking about that as I'm dressing this down and getting rid of the gap between that and the main plate. little flat there, but that'll fetch out. Right. So there's our basic triangle. Bit of a blancmange triangle at the minute. So what we want to do now, oh, as I was saying before, remember how much that opened out? Putting that in, you can see that, it's checking on the camera. Putting that in has closed that gap quite a bit. So I will have to stretch this back open, but you know, that's no big deal. Now, just making sure I don't get in the way here. What I want to do it on this bit, it's easier to see, is I've started to bruise that up, but I want this piece as well now to be sharp. I don't want it coming over like that and then disappearing down. Not in this case. So what I've got to do is I've got to dress that down. What we do, sort of in the way of the camera here a bit, is just consistently and evenly walk your way along. Keep it over this, don't go over here lifting it. And I'm coming down at that angle, I'm not coming straight in like that, and I'm not going straight down. It's about 45-ish. See, and I can start to see where my line is, and now I can just dress the other side to create that shallow triangle I'm after. But don't worry about trying to take it to a razor's edge here, because that all comes in the filing. So I just press it off. It's something to catch the eye, fool the eye into there's something more going on there than there is. You just work your way around. Wherever you think. Checking the bruising isn't sort of wobbling around. As long as that line's uniform, it doesn't matter if it's got a little shake in it, it'll look fine. If it suddenly darts down in different directions, you'll spot that. If you've got a bit here, like I have, where it's going a bit too, there's a little lump there, put it on the fatter bit up here, just like planishing. Put it off slightly. Strike it down, it'll flatten it out. Just about there. If you do squash a bit by accident, get some heat in it, jam a screwdriver under it and pull it up and work it back. But there's a little flat here. And when the piece is made, we won't spot it. Right. Just check we're still recording, because I know I'm getting close to the end. Now, what I've got to do is I've got to file this back. Now, I've got my electric file over there, which I'll have a go on in a minute. But I just want to show you what happens. Filing these back isn't cheating. I don't think anyway. Alright. tidying them up. If you've not worked that edge too much with the hammer, it's going to be good and thick. So you can file it in like that, and you can see, I hope, that starts to pick that up. It becomes a tricky one with a hand file. So I don't want to gouge it into there. Just tidy out those hammer blows. There's any big ones, fetch them out. But if you go looking at original pieces in museums, you'll see a lot. When you then take a fresh look at the triangles, you can see where there's a bit of a pucker in there, and they just didn't bother fetching it out. Not on all pieces. Some lovely bits out there, but you know, it's a handmade item. And the workmanship should reflect that. I think in the modern stuff, we're too quick to look for perfection. I've done videos on that. I'm sort of labouring this, I'd stop there normally, but I just want to show you, you can get a nice crisp edge with a minimum of investment. Right, just there. There we go. I'll put the grain against it so you can see it a bit easier on the camera. Hopefully you can still see that. I was worried you wouldn't be able to see what I was doing. There we go. Get that up onto the... I can't see a thing, hang on. There he is, there. You can see that triangle just there. What I'll do is I'll give it a quick go on the proper buffing wheel, and I'll show you what it looks like with a bit less work. As you can see, look, that edge looks absolutely fine. I left the bit I did by hand, or is it just there? You can see it in the different colours, different shades. You can see whether you do it by hand with a file or with engineering advantage. There's a nice little triangle in there. It's a high one, but I tend to like those if I'm honest. It's just something I like. If you want to get it lower, just put the brake in a bit lower. There you go. Really straightforward. And that, if I bring that, I had to do a bit of camera movement there, so that will bring to a conclusion this little crease plate series, just to sort of show a little, I wouldn't say master class, I wouldn't consider myself a master, a class, there we go. I was trying to think what's not a master class, I guess it's just a class, isn't it? But a quick class on how to make rough out a crease plate. Now there's creases to go in there, you've got the extra plates up here, you've got a lot of work to be going on there yet, but I just wanted to concentrate on the crease and its basic shape there. So well done if you stuck through it. Hopefully that'll help you make some bits and pieces, and good luck and happy hammering and all those things. Take care.